Hello, BookTube. I have a kind of a Friday Reads for you. In a way, Friday Reads are always going to be strange on this channel anyway, because I read a lot. I read all day long every day, and most people don't, so the numbers start to get unwieldy. And I didn't know quite what I wanted to do for Friday Reads today, so I just grabbed a pile of new releases, forthcoming books. These are all on my agenda for either the weekend or early next week, either to read or to reread. There's only one book on here that's older. I'll finish up with that one because it was random chance that brought it to me, and it's good. It was good timing. So we'll start off with this. This is the University of Missouri Press. We've got a pub sheet here. Hang on, I'm not getting my props right. Someday I'll be a real booktuber. This comes out in June. This is a June release from an academic press, so you probably won't see it in your bookstore. This is by Eli Merritt, and it is called Disunion Among Ourselves, The Perilous Politics of the American Revolution. This is a June book. This is going on my reading list for tonight. Let's see here. In this eye-opening account, the author reveals the deep political divisions that almost tore the Union apart during the American Revolution. So fractious were the founders' political fights that they feared the War of Independence might end in disunion and civil war. Instead of disbanding into separate regional confederacies, the founders managed to unite for the sake of liberty and self-preservation. In addition to bringing new insights to the history of the American Revolution, the history of the Civil War, this book has inevitable resonances to our own present era of political hyperpolarization and serves as a touchstone for contemporary politics, reminding us that the founders overcame far tougher times than our own through sheer commitment to ethical and constitutional democracy and compromise. And that's great. I'm all in favor of a really good book on this subject. Absolutely. It's not a subject that gets covered in a lot of American Revolution books, which often present a cleaned up picture of, colonists united against tyrannical British rule, when actually the huge majority of colonists were royalists. They were loyalists. They did not want to rebel against the crown. And even among those who did, there were incredibly fierce factional rivalries that did not wait on the gaining of independence and the establishing of a new country. You might think that a lot of these were North versus South, but they extended everywhere, absolutely everywhere. For instance, no less an expert reader of the political tea leaves than Samuel Adams, my own Samuel Adams, was worried about civil war between New England and New York over a patch of ground that the Green Mountain Boys had said is a new state, is the state of Vermont. Adams wasn't the only person who thought this will certainly lead to a shooting war, and it very nearly did. And that was all up and down the seacoast. So I don't know this author. I don't think I know this author's work, but I can't wait to read what he has to say on the subject. So that's going to be on the agenda for immediately. And well, so is this next one. This is a BookTube made me do it book, believe it or not. Do I have a sheet for you? Yes, I do. There's a BookTuber out there. You should all go and subscribe to his channel. His name's Jack Strange. That's the name of his channel as well. Really fun channel, really smart. He is currently writing a gay rom-com. And he recently did a video on this book. I already knew that I had it on my desk, so to speak. He did a video raving about it, reviewing it and raving about it, because he's a huge fan of its heavy air quotes author. This is Paris, the Memoir. This is a memoir of Paris Hilton. So let's see what we have here. Let's skip the promotional material and just read from the blurb. Paris rose to prominence as an heiress to the Hilton Hotel's empire, but cultivated her fame and fortune from being the it girl of the aughts, a time marked by the burgeoning 24-hour entertainment news cycle and advent of the celebrity blog. Using her personal celebrity brand, Paris set in motion her innovative business ventures while being the constant target of tabloid culture that dismissively wrote her off as famous for being famous. With tenacity, sharp business acumen, and grit, she built a billion-dollar global empire and, in the process, became a truly modern icon beloved around the world. And this is coming out. Do we have a date for this? March 14th. So this is out already. Oh, no wonder that he was able to get a copy. I'm going to read this, and we will see what we make of it. I doubt very much that Paris Hilton will credit the author of this book any more than Paris Hilton or her sister have ever credited the actual people with the business acumen behind the decisions that she then used to say that she is a astute businesswoman. Those were financial advisors provided by her family, and every one of them was a man. I have seen this "I'm actually a serious, astute businesswoman" bit from Paris Hilton and her sister for 10 years. And I don't believe it. It's a simple way of saying this. I don't believe it. I think that Paris Hilton is gaslighting in human form. I don't think there's any doubt that she is a blithering idiot who has been this business about risky business ventures and building on a financial empire of her own. The implication being on her own wits and savvy without any help from her family. Well, I'll read the book. Jack Strange, if I remember, I'll leave a link to Jack Strange's video because it's really good. And he does believe that. And according to him, reading this memoir reinforced that. So maybe it will change my mind. Certainly that is the whole nature of going into a book with an open mind. Especially when you are being sotto voce nudged by someone who has never talked to me, never met me, but nevertheless, you watch BookTube, you see somebody and you think, okay, well, I like you, you've got a brain in your head, and you read this and liked it. Now, I'm sure that he would be the first to admit that he's a Paris Hilton fanboy. But I don't think that annihilates common sense. Maybe there's something in this. Maybe there is. We will see. Then, I swear that the timing, the placement of these two books side by side is an accident. Whatever you might think, I swear that it's an accident. And this next one is the finished copy of Camera Girl, which is a biography by Carl Anthony of the coming of age of Jacqueline Onassis, of Jacqueline Bouvier. Before she met Jack Kennedy, this book climaxes with her meeting Jack Kennedy. And there are tons of pictures. This is the finished copy. We've seen the advanced copy already. There are tons of pictures in here, including all sorts of pictures that don't usually crop up in books. Let's just put it that way. There's a picture of young Jack in his office, pretending that he understands what his documents say. And I think I have a sheet for this too. Yes, I do. All right, so we've already seen this. We saw the advanced copy. But let's read about the finished copy just in case you missed it. This comes on sale in early May. And this will be, let's see what we can do here. We'll just read a bit of this, because this was recently that we saw the advanced copy of this. While Jackie Bouvier Kennedy is often seen as someone whose rise to fame can be attributed solely to privilege, this book examines how much intention she lived with and how methodical she was. The book tracks her time in Paris during college, her employment with the Washington Times-Herald through her meeting and courtship with Senator Kennedy. More substantially, she helped Senator Kennedy formulate his views on the Vietnam question, writing a groundbreaking report for him in 1953, whose contents are examined for the first time in this book. Within a period of 35 days in May and early June of 1951, Jackie graduated college, learned that she had won the prestigious Vogue Prix de Paris writing contest, which her mother forced her to turn down, withdrew her father from a rehab center, and met John F. Kennedy. So this is all about Jackie Kennedy before she became Jackie Kennedy. And the author, I've read this author before, I really like his work, and he apparently finds a great deal of a story there, a great deal of a person who's far more than she seems. So of course I am thinking, if there are parallels. We shall see. I'm not going to miss this. Absolutely. It definitely intrigues me. Then we have, this book is a bit of a hard sell, but if the author can convince me, then more power to them. Let's see here. My feng shui is acting up. This is by Joel Gerges, and it is Humanity's Moment, a climate scientist's case for hope. You would think they would be the people who would have the least hope. Here, I'm going to put the book down and use at least 15 hands to get at the actual contents of the... There we go. Pick the book back up again. When climate scientist Joel Gerges, Joel, or whatever, however you say the name, set to work on the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, the 6th assessment report, the research she encountered kept her up at night. Through countless hours spent with the world's top scientists piecing together the latest global assessment of climate change, she realized that the impacts were occurring faster than anyone had predicted. Yes, they are. They are accelerating. In this book, she takes readers through the science of the 6th IPCC report with unflinching honesty, explaining what it means for humanity's future while sharing her personal reflections on bearing witness to the heartbreak of the climate emergency unfolding in real time. Now, I'm assuming, since you're all discriminating BookTube video watchers, I'm assuming that you not only will go and subscribe to Jack Strange, of course, but also that you watch Climate Adam on BookTube. If you don't, you should. And he's already discussed this report, but here's a book about it. And the author apparently is going to say, you know, this isn't hopeless. It isn't as bad as it looks. We can still fix this. I myself have looked at that report, and no offense to her or to Climate Adam, but the report clearly spells that we are doomed. In all cases, the positive people will say all we need is the political will to change what we're doing, that it's not too late. This author claims in this book that the 2020s will be the decade that people will look back on and say either they saved it, they saved the planet, or they let it die. They let humanity suffer. But first of all, the political will isn't there. Plain and simple. Not in the United States, which is where it needs to be. And second, the numbers are insurmountable. This isn't increasing. It's shooting up asymptotically, and there's no way that you can counteract for that. This is a done deal, is what I'm saying, and what humanity should be thinking about is mitigation, not prevention. But maybe this author will prove me wrong. Maybe all of these books are going to prove me wrong. Then this next one is a finished copy of something that we've already seen. I've actually already read this book, but I will be reading the finished copy again. Do I have a sheet for you? Yes, I do. Wow, fantastic. Am I going to need to put everything down in order to use a jackhammer and safe cracking tools to get the sheet open? Yes, I am. All right, there we go. Let's put this back here. This is by Paco Calvo, and it is Plantasapiens. And this is about all the things that plants think. This is about a reevaluation of sentience to include the plant kingdom. Decades of research on documents plants' impressive abilities. They communicate with each other, manipulate other species, and move in sophisticated ways. Lesser known, however, is that although plants may not have brains, their internal workings reveal a system not unlike the neural networks running through our own bodies. They can learn and remember, possessing an intelligence that allows them to behave in flexible, forward-looking, goal-directed ways. In this book, the author, a leading figure in the philosophy of plant signaling and behavior, offers an entirely new perspective on plants' worlds, showing for the first time how that we can use tools developed to study animal cognition in a quest to understand plant intelligence. Plants learn from experience. Wild strawberries can be taught to link light intensity with nutrient levels in the soil, and flowers can time pollen production to pollinator visits. Plants have social intelligence, releasing chemicals from their roots and leaves to speak and identify one another. They make decisions about where to invest their growth, judging risk based on the resources available. Their individual preferences vary too. Plants have personalities. This is absolutely groundbreaking, if any of this is true. The one element that's missing from that laundry list of plant attributes is whether or not they can suffer, which was at the heart of what I suspect is the only other book like this, which is Animal Liberation by Peter Singer. If this is plant liberation, if that's what this book is, or if this is the groundwork for someone to write plant liberations, this will change the whole world, at least the parts of the world that give a damn. This comes out in mid-March. This is out in your bookstores already, and I've read the advanced copy, but I'm going to reread the finished copy with a pencil in hand, taking notes, because I want to write about it, even though we're on the doorstep of April. Then we have a travel log. I don't think I have a sheet for this, so I don't have to fight with it. Good. No, I don't. This is by Gaith Abdul Ahad. I don't know how you say his first name. Stranger in Your Own City. The subtitle is Travels in the Middle East Long War. And the title exactly describes the book. Let's see here. The history of reportage has often depended on outsiders. Kapuscinski witnessing the fall of the Shah in Iran, Fitzgerald observing the aftermath of the American war in Vietnam. What would happen if a native son was so estranged from his city by war that he could, in essence, view it as an outsider? What kind of portrait of a war-racked place and people might he present? This book is a vivid, shattering response. This is not a book about Iraq's history or the inventory of many Middle Eastern wars that have consumed the nation over the past several decades. This is a tale of a people who once lived under the rule of a megalomaniac leader who shaped the state in his own image. A people who watched a foreign army invade, topple that leader, demolish the state, and then invent a new country. Who experienced the horror of having their homes fragmented into 100 different cities. When the Shock and Awe campaign began in March of 2003, the author was an architect. Within months, he would become a translator, then a fixer, then a reporter for The Guardian and elsewhere, chronicling the unbuilding of his centuries-old cosmopolitan city. Beginning at the moment and spanning 20 years, the author's book decenters the West in its place, focuses on everyday people, soldiers, mercenaries, citizens blown sideways through life by the war, and the proliferation of sectarian battles that continue to this day. Here is their Iraq, seen from the inside, the human cost of violence, the shifting allegiances, the generational change. I don't have a date on this thing, but I'm gonna read it this weekend and see what it has to say. It sounds like the author is a fairly formidable person. So, okay, then we have a little bit for Vin. As Revenant reads, gotta have something for Vin. Do I have a sheet for you? Yes, I do. Wow. Okay, put the book down. Use 10 hands to get the sheet open. Okay, then pick the book back up. All right. This is by Carolyn Larrington, and it is The North's Myths That Shape the Way We Think. This is a scholarly look through the Norse mythology. Let's see here. This comes out in late May. In this book, the author takes readers deep into the realms described in the Icelandic sagas, from the gloomy halls of Hel to the dazzling heights of Asgard. She expertly examines the myth's many modern-day reimaginings, revealing the guises that have been worn by the figures of Norse myth, including Marvel's muscled golden-haired Thor and George R. R. Martin's White Walkers, who march inexorably southward, bringing their eternal winter with them. This sophisticated yet accessible guide explores how these powerful stories have inspired our cultural landscape, from fueling the creative genius of Richard Wagner to the construction of the Nazis' nationalist ideology. The author's elegantly written retellings capture the essence of the original myths, while also delving into the history of their meanings. So fantastic. I've got a ton of April stuff to do, so I might not get to this until May, but very happy to have it, and always interested in this particular subject. We're getting to the end here, don't you worry. This next one is an older book. This came out in March, I believe. Yes, this came out in March 7th, so this is out in your bookstores already. But it's not old. The next one is old. This one is still in bookstores, still on the new release tables. This is by Timothy Phillips, and it's called Retracing the Iron Curtain, a 3,000-mile journey through the end and afterlife of the Cold War. And this is very much going to dovetail with an event that Mark at Book Time with Elvis and I are doing, where we're reading travel writing. This is, I've mentioned a couple of times now in connecting with S&M journeys, that travel writing and reportage often overlap. They're often born from the same impulses. They often serve the same market. This is very much that, because the author decides to travel the whole periphery of what was called the Iron Curtain. Let's see here. This book transports readers across 3,000 miles of Europe and through 8 decades to show how one of the defining stories of the 20th century continues to shape our world. In this eye-opening book, the author travels the route of the Iron Curtain from the Arctic Circle to the meeting point of Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Turkey. He explores the borderlands where the clash of civilizations was most intense and where the world's most powerful ideologies became tangible in reinforced concrete and barbed wire. He looks at the modern Europe that emerged from the ruins, and the people he meets bear witness to the times of change. In these historic landscapes lie buried many of the seeds of our world's current disputes over borders and about belonging and the meaning of progress. This is fantastic for me. Absolutely fantastic. There's the Iron Curtain. He's just going to follow along its length. That is an inspired idea for travel writing. It must have been grueling to do. Can't wait. Can't wait to dig into it. And then the last book here is Sheer Chance. I read this when it came out 3 or 4 years ago and assessed it and thought I was done with it. I confess, parts of it I have been thinking about ever since. I'm pretty sure that if I'd encountered this, as a trade paperback for $5 at the Brattle, I would probably have got it. and given it a reread, but I encountered it for free. So I grabbed it up in a hardcover too with the deckled edges. This is The Guest Book by Sarah Blake. I wonder how many of you have read this book. Is this 2019? Yeah, this is 2019. Kind of a multi-era historical novel. We saw that yesterday with Escape to Florence. This is sort of the same thing, a big ambitious thing that I remember liking but not loving. But it has been sticking with me, and that is an element of assessing a book that you can't predict. The best critic in the world can't predict that. That's the one element a critic can't tell you. Will they be when they've reviewed a book or when they've talked about it, will they still be thinking about it in 3 years? And if so, is that a thing that the book is doing? Is that something praiseworthy or noteworthy that the book itself is doing? Does that make it worth a second look? And this has been on my mind when other books all around it have that I've praised more highly have long since quieted down in my brain. So look at a little bit of this thing for those of you who maybe don't know this book. No is a simple word uttered on a summer porch in 1936, and it will haunt Kitty Milton for the rest of her life. Kitty and her husband Ogden are both from families considered to be the backbone of the country. At one point early on in the book, Ogden says that he was told by his grandmother that they did not come over in the Mayflower. They came over on the next ship because they weren't refugees. She looks down on the people who came over on the Mayflower because they were fleeing, whereas the next ship, they came intentionally. But this refusal will come to be Kitty's defining moment, and its consequences will ripple through the Milton family for generations. For while they summer on their island in Maine, anchored as they are to the way things have always been, the winds of change are beginning to stir. The giant house on a cliff on the coast of Maine is central to the book. Things revolve around it, and a lot of stuff happens there. In 1959, New York City, two strangers enter the Milton circle. One captures the attention of Kitty's daughter, while the other makes each of them question what the family stands for. This new generation insists times are changing, and in one night, everything does. So much so that in the present day, the third generation of Miltons doesn't have enough money to keep the island in Maine. Evie Milton's mother has just died, and as Evie digs into her mother and grandparents' history, what she finds is a story as unsettling as it is inescapable, a story that threatens the foundation of the Milton family myth. And that story is foreshadowed very early on in the book when one of the early Miltons is walking around in 1930s Germany and thinking, well, there's a lot of business can be made here. if we politely ignore the Treaty of Versailles, well, we could get ironworks up and running. We could do all sorts of things like that. And what's the worst that could happen? So you can kind of guess what those strangers encountering the Milton family in the 1950s have on their minds. I remember the parts of this struck me as very hammy, but that generally I liked it. But it's been on my mind. It's been sticking on my mind. I think this may be a very fruitful reread. And so I'm glad that fate just happened to shove it under my nose. That's wonderful. So considering all the trouble I've had with Feng Shui, we won't do a Steve Pyramid, but that is a bit of a Friday Reads. These things are all, almost all of them are in hardcover. Quite a few of them are out now or coming out real soon. So they definitely count for a kind of Friday Reads. I'm going to hoover up all of this stuff eventually. But when it comes to Friday Reads, I, of course, want to know what you're doing. What are you reading? What will you be reading this weekend? Are you facing inclement weather? A third of the country here in the United States is facing inclement weather of some kind or other. This weekend it will be torrentially raining, it looks like, here in Boston. Are you finishing things up? Do you have, you know that I'm nosy. If you were here for Friday Night Wine and Calzones, I would be asking you these questions. Are any of you the type that thinks, I'm going to redo my reading list for a new month? Do you routinely do that? Is the fact that this is the last day of March going to affect your TBR? I'd love to hear those stories. Absolutely love to hear them. I'm not that way. But I, of course, in a way, am thinking, now that it will soon be April, I should be shifting my concentration to April books. I'm still up to my ham hocks in March books. I'll have to get some of them. I'll have to give some of them consideration. But I need to be turning my attention to the new month that dawns tomorrow. So I'd love to hear about it. Friday Reads me. I would love to hear about it. But anyway, that's it for now. I will wrap this up. But I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.